Da 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 da. What's my good chair? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I am so happy today. What a great day! What an exhausting day, but what a great day. I started it off by getting up, making myself a nice breakfast, tidying up the house a little bit, knowing that I was going to get outside for a little while, but wasn't quite sure what I was going to be up to. Sorry, I got my window open here. Let's just shut it. Um, Not, but knowing that I was going to get out of the house, right? And my sister messaged me and she says, "Oh, do you want to go thrifting?" And it's been a while, right? With the tariffs going on and everything, eBay took quite a hit. Actually, Canada Post took a big, big hit because yeah, they got shut out a little bit in what's going on with these tariffs. And my sister, she is an eBayer, and because you know, we go out thrifting together. We both find scores, and we split those scores in half after the shipping and the she pays for almost everything so that she'll just deduct that money when she sells it. But we've been doing really, really well in that. And unfortunately, she's thinking about shutting it down for a little while. I just said, hold off on that. You can find other ways to send it off, FedEx, UPS. Sure, it's going to be a little bit more money, but you're not paying those fees. And in the end, maybe it won't make a difference because the Canadians will be looking for Canadian sellers because they don't want to pay those tariffs themselves either, right? They could make so much money. Oh my goodness, those Americans are just going to have money just flying everywhere. And in some ways, you can think that it's going to be really good for the economy. I think even really good for the small man in the end, right? For the Americans in those relations. I don't know. I'm not got my nose in those topics at all, only when it concerns what's going on with me. And because I partner up with my sister, right, we're kind of a little bit concerned about Canada Post, but we know too they will find a solution because Canada Post doesn't want to go under, especially after all the strikes and everything, all that work they've been putting it in making things run properly. Yeah, they'll find a solution. And I told my sister, don't worry about it. We'll just find solutions, you know, temporary, knowing that, right, these things will be fixed. It's always adjusting to change in our lives, and it's just not adjusting to government changes or, other countries making decisions that affect our country, right? Change should be in our life constantly. It's how we become resilient. It's in our practicing and adapt and conquer. And for myself, I'll tell you about it in a moment. I'm excited and nervous about it at the same time. But you guys, I booked my camping spots. We are taking my trip in just over 2 weeks, you guys. I am doing my trip. I have not missed these excursions that I do in connecting with Mother Nature. I have not missed a year in 30 years, probably, where I go off by myself. So grateful. And I have to throw a lot of gratefuls in there today, right? But so grateful that, way back then, I wasn't woke to any ideas or anything. I was just looking to get out of the busyness of the world, busyness of my own life, in those stresses. I call it busyness, but it's stressful, isn't it? When that world is so busy and we do have to adjust in that hairy scary of it all. But somehow, some way, I connected to Mother Nature, and my joy for going off on the road. And it all started with getting my first new dependable vehicle, and it just brought about a sense of freedom. And there were other senses of freedom that just compounded and made that freedom even more magnificent. And some of it, you know, right? I don't want to look at it as a good thing. It affected me so well because it just broke the chains out of my life. And that happened to be when my mother passed away. And that's a terrible thing to say about one's own mother. um, but I did my very best, and a lot of it was out of that idea: honor thy mother and thy father. I loved my father so much. He was my best friend. He was my bodyguard. He was my BFF. Like he was everything to me. But a lot of that was limerence. A lot of that was that need to have a safe zone. And my father was always the safe zone. Even though my mother ran the house, my dad was away a lot. But when he was home, he was king of his castle. And whatever my dad said, my mother abided by. And she would have to choke on a lot of emotions and a lot of actions in her life. And, I wasn't too aware of the goings on and how things worked in that manner. But for me, I truly understood that I was safe with my father. And I loved him for that. I loved him anyway. He was a beautiful, sweet man. I loved my father anyway. But that extra sense of safety, and my mother passed away, right? That was a difficult one for all my sisters. And for me, you know, it was instant, that sense of freedom that I got. By then, I had already found the freedom and that connection with Mother Nature. I'd already started going off every year. I couldn't go all the time. It wasn't like, I had sometimes, I'd go to people's cottages and stuff. We do live in cottage country. But for the most part, it wasn't something that I was able to do very often. And it would take saving money and booking time off work. And it was in making those arrangements and making that space so that I could do that. And I only did it once a year, but it became a tradition. It became a yearly goal for me. The way this year went, I truly believed that I wasn't going to make it happen this year, that I wasn't going to be able to make this trip happen. My sister was seriously very, very, very ill. She almost passed away a few times this year. And, she had to go into the hospital for a very serious operation. If you've been with me for any length of time, you probably know about it already. I'm coming out of that now, and she's coming out of that now absolutely terrifically. Like, she is the best post op patient ever. She got herself off tubes and catheter and painkillers almost immediately. And they tried, said, well, try and get up and do a short few steps every single day. Oh no, she was doing laps in those hallways and purposely walking around the nurses' desks, and just to show off what a great post op patient she was. and it worked. She got out of the hospital a week early. She got out of the hospital that very same week. But in that emotional turmoil, right, for her, it was probably 10 times worse than it was for me. I was at the hospital every day, but I definitely needed to crash in that, right? I don't know if I really truly did, but I think just being by myself, getting outside here and there, not having the worry and the stress of my sisters on my mind and in my heart and on my back, that I was able to crash in my own way. Well, I got those campsites booked today. The car is taken care of, right? The campsites are taken care of. I'm slowly taking care of the few groceries that I'm going to need. And, right, maybe there's a little bit left over in the kitty for some of the gas. I suspect not all of it, but we're not going for a few weeks. So maybe we can add more to that kitty. I don't know. Or, right, I spent all day yesterday listing things, started digging into my lovelies to list, right? A lot of things and listings that I had done, they were things that were lovely, but nothing that I would feel bad about parting with. This time around, right? I dug a little bit deeper and I still won't miss it truly when it's gone, right? I found a sewing machine. I forgot I even bought it. Bought it like 6 months ago. It was just like in perfect shape, really nice sewing machine. I think with my staff discount, I paid like $15 for it. I posted it for $140 yesterday, which is still a really good deal because that sewing machine goes for 250 dollars. But there were a few things like that I listed. And this is going to be my fun money. This is going to be my money for my digging for crystals, because you guys know that I always do the amethyst mines, and I go to Thunder Bay and I dig for crystals. This year I took a 3-day camping spot. I took one day camping spot just to make it a nice short drive in a park that I thought might have some nice scenery. And not only that, I have the whole park to myself. In this moment, it doesn't mean that nobody else is going to book something. It's still 3 weeks away. But I have an entire park for myself for the first time ever. Hello, Eugene. I'm having a great night. I hope you're having a great night too. For the first time ever, I'm doing a walk in campsite where you actually walk down a trail and right down at the lakefront. And I'm like just the most prettiest little spot ever. And I'll be staying a couple of nights there. So, for the most part, I've got 2 nights in two of the spots. I have one night in one spot just in a transition because I don't want to spend very long driving, right? Not like I did last year. I love my drive, so I love being on the road. But you know what? It's all about connecting with Mother Nature. I'm going to be doing my trails, I'm going to be doing my tree hugging, I'm going to be breathing in beautiful wilderness air, and it's going to revive me, and I'm going to have to live on that all year unless another miracle. I'm calling it a miracle because there was no way that trip, I never even talked about it or anything for the past couple of months because I didn't see any chance of it happening. But through the grace of whoever or whatever, I'm going to make this happen, right? Even in this moment, just the way I'm situated right now, if nothing more comes into the pocket, right? If there's no groceries, I will live on peanut butter toast and coffee that entire week. I will do that because that's how important these trips are to me. So I'm just throwing some serious gratefuls out there. I have no idea how that managed to happen. And it all happened today, right? When I went out with my sister and we had a few conversations, and I just said, "Oh, we're going to have to get those campsites done today." And she's, "Oh, okay." Right? And we got it done, and I got all the dates good. I'll just drop her off at the airport, and once I drop her off at the airport, I'll just come home and my stuff will be packed. I just have to load up the car and I am out of here. And my first campsite is only a 4-hour drive away. So I'll have a nice drive the first day out. All four provincial parks are new. I have never been to them before. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm just excited to get my trip. I'm so excited that my sister is feeling better, not just feeling better so that I can go on my trip. I'm just so pleased, and I am so grateful again that things worked out the way that they did. They could have worked out a totally different way, 100%. Lots of the time, that stress and what we think about is realized. And I tell you, right, we were all going a little cuckoo over what was going on with her, right? We all fed off of that fear, right? And she had some serious fear, and rightfully so. It's the same operation that my father didn't make it through, so she had that on her mind, but she got through it. And she just didn't get through it. She got through it magnificently. And I messaged her, I said, "You better not get sick while I'm away because I'm going on this trip. I've actually divvied out some cash for my campsites already. You guys know I'm not a tightwad, but I'm very careful that way. I'm not, well, I shouldn't say I'm careful that way, but when it comes to my camping, right? Once I've made that commitment, and that's what I needed, you guys. That's right, because this is happening for sure. And now I set my sights on it. Now I move towards it. Now I got to find a babysitter for the week for my cat, hoping that my brother in law will put his hand up when I ask for a little bit of help with that. If not, I will just find somebody in the building. But excuse me. Oh, it's been a long day. Um, I'll find somebody in the building and, maybe give them a few dollars or do them a kindness or something. And, right, my cat can stay home. The only reason I'm saying my brother in law might take her is because she's quite comfortable with my brother in law. They kind of like each other, but she's also comfortable at home. So she would probably be okay. But it's the company, right? She loves love more than she loves food, and that's a fact. And I give her lots of hugs and kisses and attention, but she won't have that if I'm gone a week, and she will not be pleased with me when I get home. Guaranteed. So you guys, we're doing this trip content, right? Cindy explores the outside, not just the inside. And it has been a whole year of inside stuff, hasn't it? It's been a crazy year. But I say that every year, but it just seems in the baby steps every year going forward just seems to be a little bit more manageable. Not like the wrenches don't get thrown into my life, but that's the challenge, right? That's right, to keep us resilient, keep that ability to adapt and conquer. And so go back when I said that, oh, I'll tell you in a few minutes. I don't fish. I know. I'm all about the outdoors. I am such an outdoors girl, but I have a problem with hurting the fish, right? And because I won't eat the fish that I catch, they have to be set free. And I'm not really good at taking those hooks out of their mouths and stuff. And so I gave up fishing. I have not fished in, oh my goodness, It's got to be at least 10 years that I have not fished. I had a great fishing gear kit. I had beautiful I gave it all away. I actually sold the last of it at like in a garage sale and stuff, and that stuff was not cheap. So I thought, right, it's important that I'm able to feed myself if need be, right? If this world goes to pot, not to say that it will, that's why we're here, right? To be resilient. I'm not a survivalist or anything, even though I do have a bin with all kinds of survival stuff, and I'll be taking that on my trip, right? Just because, you come across an accident on the road or you get an accident on yourself that you're prepared, and I'm prepared very well, and I'm grateful for that job that put the roof over my head because I scored such amazing things for that safety bin, right? And not only a safety bin, I've got a medical bag too, full of all kinds of things. So if I should come across an accident or something, I can be assistance in that, right? But back to the fishing, right? I don't like to kill things, but I understand that I'm going to starve if something happens in the world and I really do have to go live in the bush, and I'll be on the Trans Canada Highway walking towards Sharbot Lake. I even checked it out. It'll take me 6 or 7 months to walk there. Maybe a little bit more because a lot of that is mountains and stuff, right? So that we're not going just straight walking there, but they say it takes 5 months, so I estimated 6 or 7 months, but it could even be 8 months. But I'm right. I'm going to Sharbot Lake, so if anything happens, the world goes to pot, and you just need company, and it's a great idea because we should be able to find each other, right? I'm not going to be repopulating the world myself, but I'm sure going to do my darndest to get those matchmaking things going on, right? And get this world back on track, right? I'm not looking at it that way, but I thought maybe I should learn to fish, right? And I used to fish. I was a very bad fisher, but the first time I caught my fish, I took that hook out, and oh, his whole cheek was right, and he swam sideways. He still swam, and it all swam, and it just, I can't do that anymore. I said, right? That's just too heartbreaking. I just, somebody whose steering wheel is guilt and shame. I felt just absolutely terrible. And I thought about it all year before I made that decision that I wasn't going to fish anymore. But how am I going to feed myself? Right? I got survival books. I know how to make fire starter. I can take the sticks. I even got flint and fire starter squeezy things that I can, right, make fire if I don't have lighters and matches and stuff. I've got slingshots that I could, right, get rabbits, but whatever I take down, I'm going to have to eat it, right? I'll try to take the hooks out and release them properly, but it's in that practice, right? And, but I feel it's probably important that I learn to fish. Maybe, hopefully, I get no use out of it in the end, except catching a fish, filleting it, and throwing it in my frying pan, right? But at least I'll know that I can do it. All I need to do is get one fish, and then I'll go back to not fishing anymore. But I will add a fishing rod and some fishing hooks to my survival gear again, right? But I thought maybe I better practice because I've, right, since I was a kid, I used to catch fish all the time when I go fishing with my dad. My dad was a commercial fisherman. But, as an adult, I've only caught one fish because really I'm about all Mother Nature. I'm about, right? I'm even taking my dinghy with me. I sold my kayak, right? The garage sale. Oh my goodness, the kid got such a good deal on it. And they got the bag for it too. But I've got my dinghy still, so I'm going to take my dinghy with me. And if we have nice, calm days when it comes to wind and stuff, I'm going to go out to the lake and I'm just going to float around on the lake. For the most part, that week that I'm gone away, that's the last week for a lot of the campgrounds in northern Ontario. They get really cold, like we get cold here in Manitoba. It gets to like minus 40, minus 50 Celsius, higher with the wind chill sometimes. But yeah, they shut down and they will not be open till middle of May in the springtime. And yeah, I'm going to be the only person, I think, in two of these provincial parks that I'm going in. I mean, like I said, it's 3 weeks away. Somebody will reserve it. Somebody will say, "Oh, just one more shot," right? I want to go fishing, or right where I go. We are one of the best places in the world for sportsmanship fishing. And not just the variety of fish that we have, but how big they are and how clean they are, right? That there's not a lot of chemicals in them and not a lot of mercury and stuff. The rivers, right? A little bit different story because they come from the states and who knows, because most cities are built along the rivers, so you don't know where the leakages and stuff like that come from, right? So they say they test the rivers and stuff and that the fish is perfectly edible, right? A little bit higher content of mercury in them, but they're perfectly edible. But I don't know. I right no right. So I wouldn't even bother fishing in the river except to practice if I don't get my first fish. But I'm going to score my sister's fishing gear for my trip, and if my vehicle isn't too packed, I really have to compact what I'm going to be taking with me. Right, I won't be taking all my camping gear, but I'll take what's important. So grateful, grateful. I'm so excited. I so need this, and I really did put the idea of it on the back burner. And, I accepted it, right? I accepted the situation. I accepted that I wasn't going to go on my trip this year. I was setting my priorities and keeping the roof over my head, making sure my bills were paid. And, I really didn't expect that I was going to be able to manage my trip this year, right? And looks like it's happening. Looks like it's happening. I'm so absolutely thrilled. And I printed out all my sheets here. I took my time looking at the campsites. I wanted to be as close to the water as I could, but I also want to be in the forest. So, in the parks that I have the whole park for myself, right? There's no point in being on the lakeside. I want to get right into the middle of the forest because I'll be the only one there besides the bears. But I've been doing these trips for so long, it doesn't even phase me. It's absolutely amazing. So, you guys, we're going to just pick a card and watch us get gratefulness today. I know I got that card in there, right? I just wanted to say a little bit about that and just express, because I don't always, I think and I feel the gratefulness all the time, but I know it's important to vocalize that. And it's important to vocalize a lot of things. And, so when I do these live podcasts or I do my live shows or when I get out on the road and stuff, that's all speaking, right? And that's speaking from my heart because I think I'm a pretty genuine person. I'm pretty honest and straight up in what I bring to the table and how I feel and how I express myself. But lots of times, like I said, I just express myself inside my head and in my feelings, and it doesn't come out vocally. So, right, it's important to vocally get these ideas down And not only that, right? I write things. I write things. I write things down. Let me have my coffee. My throat is really yaunchy. It has been raunchy for a few days, but I've been eating pumpkin seeds and maybe yapping a little bit more than usual, right? Keeping in that connection with my sisters and what's going on. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, you guys, we're just going to pull a card. If you've never hung out with me, they're not tarot cards, they're just powerful words, you guys. Powerful words. And each word I worked in with a week. I drew the powerful words and we did 54 powerful words. I had 56 cards. Two of the words, powerful words, are in my deck twice for reasons I've explained before, but not important in this moment. And those two words are acceptance and belief. Two important words that didn't get covered properly when I pulled them up for different reasons. And so I did them again in a different perspective because every day I worked with each one of those words. When I pulled that word out, I worked with each one of these words for a week, just looking at them in different perspectives, sometimes even different perceptions. And perceptions is just the learning to get to the perspective. The perspective is should be pretty much a belief. It should be pretty compounded as a truth for us, right? So sometimes, right, when you're working with the word, you're just expressing yourself in a moment. So in those times, I suspect that I was bringing perceptions to the table, but I would always let people know, right? And I did that with a card. I think six 6 days, 5 days, 5 days a week. So for 5 days, I worked with each card. It took me over a year to get this deck done, and then it took me another couple of months to properly find the card paper for it and decide what size I wanted my cards. I didn't want them like tarot cards. I just right, they're little 2 by 5 inch cards, right? And or 5 centimeters by 10 centimeters cards if you're Canadian or European. The States are pretty much the only place in the world that still uses um, imperial measurement. And do you know how much that costs? Right? Because labels all have to be properly stating the ingredients and their mineral and vitamin contents on them. At least here in Canada, you have to do it. I would expect that it would be the same way in the States. But because they don't, they probably understand the metric system a little bit now that it's been around for 40 years, I think. Metric system came in the 70s. Um, it's not widely used in the States at all, unless you're coming traveling or, right, you're buying a product from Canada. But for the most part, that's a lot of reprinting or relabeling. If they just kind of join forces with the rest of the world, right, majority rules, and just do the metric too, that would be so much better, right? It might take away from a few jobs that have to print those labels, new labels and stuff, and right, the cost of it and the earnings of the staff and everything. Like, those are little hits, but the government will do much better and it wouldn't take long, right? Even for me, I think the metric system came into the class, I think in maybe the ninth grade. They just started it, so ninth grade would have been 1970, 78 maybe. And then yeah, by 79, I was doing it, the metric. Still a little bit confusing, but I was getting it done. And then just a few years later, right? Well, I'm not going to say I'm good at it because of the American measurements. We still, right, when we bake, we do 1 cup, 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon. That's all imperial. We don't do the millimeters and stuff, but we do the imperial measurement also for inches and miles. Here in Canada, we also do the metric for the miles. So it is a little bit of a mishmash for my generation. Generations after me, they're doing much better with the metric than they are the imperial measurement. But even in construction, imperial measurement is used a lot. When you go to the lumber stores, and I used to work in the lumber stores, right? 2x4s and right 4x8s. These measurements are still widely used, but in the labeling, everything is metric. It's the law, right? It's the law. Yeah. Okay, you guys. I don't know where I was going with that, but let's just grab a card. We'll just go into it for a couple of minutes, and yeah, I hope everybody's having a great night. If you're just starting your day, I hope you're having an amazing day. My sister was struggling with her back, my sister Alice, and I was very surprised when she called me and said, "Let's go thrifting," right? Because she was hurting really, really bad, and she had to work through that. And then she just said, "Oh, my back the past couple of days, right? It's just fantastic." So I hope it carries over for her, right? And she had some friends in town visiting and stuff, right? It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Always, it always works like that. But most of the time, we're just concentrating on what's going wrong. Okay, you guys, let's just pick a card here. Oh my goodness. It might have been this card, you guys, and this was the same card that we got yesterday, if you remember. But it was stuck to this card, and I don't know if it was in the front or the back, and this was the first one I picked up. So we got change, you guys. Change is always the result of an action, right? And that's true. That's true. It takes the action to bring about change. But we start with a choice because it's the choice that puts us in the direction of what change is going to happen, right? So, yeah, without that action today, without me going in and finalizing my camping spots, right? Getting in there and actually booking them and paying for them, change is happening. I'm going on this trip now, a trip that I didn't think that I was possibly even going to be able to go on this year, right? Change is always the result of an action. And that is 100% true, right? I have to learn to fish again properly. I just going to catch one fish. If I tear its cheek off, pulling out the hook, then it's going to be in my frying pan, right? And I need to learn to do that and do it without, right, cringing and stuff. Because if that day should come and I do have to support myself in a way where, I'm making rabbit traps and I'm taking out my slingshot and taking out deer, that I'm able to do that. I'm not going to practice with the deer, but that I'll just hold off on just in the necessity of it, right? But fishing is actually a skill that my survival 100%, if nothing else, right? I live in Canada. I live in cottage country, right? Land of 10,000 lakes, and that's the truth. We have so many lakes. Yeah. When I'm out on the highway and I'm exploring old homesteads and acreage and stuff, every property has a lake. Everyone might not be really, really big, but everyone has lakes. There's so many lakes and marshes absolutely everywhere. But change is coming about, you guys. It really is. I remember what I said yesterday. I was feeling it. Like I was feeling the change coming into my life, coming into my family's life, coming into the world, and right, we just have to ride those waves. Sometimes we just have to adapt and conquer. Sometimes we don't have to do anything except wait it out. But in waiting it out, there are things that we can do, right? We can learn to fish, we can learn to use the slingshot, we can, right? There are so many different things that we do have a little bit of space that we can make a choice that will bring about, right? That action that will bring about change in our lives. And especially when things are not going well, right? When we make those decisions and we hold ourselves accountable to them, when we take that action, right? Lots of times we can move, right? That into the positive. We can make such amazing, wonderful changes. And there's a lot of amazing, wonderful changes. But like I said, sometimes we're too busy at looking at what's dragging us down rather than what's lifting us up. And that's the truth. Okay, you guys, I am done with my day, right? Just a little short conversation today. It's important to bring about change, even our day to day to day. You know what I mean? Like, like today shouldn't have looked like yesterday, right? The same things. We should like be throwing those wrenches into our own life, not in a self-sabotagey way, right? Lots of times, when I was gambling, I would scramble because I was always problem solving. I was always trying to figure out, how do I get the money to pay the bills? How am I going to put groceries in the cupboard? And you know what? The answer always was quit gambling, Cindy, right? And I never did that. I never made that choice. I did eventually make that choice, but not till decades later, not until after the damage had been done. When I say the damage, it's the damage in my relationships, my marriage falling apart, in those jobs that were putting the roof over my head. There was, right, even within my own family, me and my sisters, like it caused so much havoc, right? But I never made that decision. I didn't make a different choice when I could have, right? In the end, there really wasn't a choice left open. I didn't have a choice, right? I wouldn't have had a life if I had made that move that I did. But I tell you, again, we're just going to throw some gratefuls out there. So grateful that I don't gamble anymore. I am so grateful for that. I can't imagine anybody going through what I went through with the gambling. But you know what? You've got your own coping mechanisms, and you can say the same thing, that people just don't get it. People just don't relate to your problem. But if you were to beat that, right? And you could, all it takes is making that choice and start moving towards that, because the closer you get to doing it, right, the easier it seems. And it just doesn't seem easier, it is easier. Change is really important. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer tonight. We'll see you tomorrow.